Paul George wasn't ready to do that, and now we are into unrestricted free agency. Philadelphia out in the marketplace, Orlando to an extent out in the marketplace for him.
That's what it sounds like. It's going to take a Hail Mary for the Clippers to keep Paul George, but...
Ladies and gentlemen, NBA free agency is officially here, and we're going to make sure to keep you up to date with the latest and greatest NBA news as soon as it happens. Right now, it's looking like it's going to be a very difficult offseason for both the Los Angeles Clippers and the Golden State Warriors, so we have a lot to discuss. Before we get to the content, we are less than 50,000 subscribers away to getting to 1 million subscribers. If you want to support us in reaching that goal, make sure you subscribe and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. And from the bottom of my heart, man, thank you guys so much for the support recently. It's been incredible since the beginning of the offseason. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? I know some Los Angeles Clipper fans might think I'm a little biased whenever it comes to my analysis on the Clippers because I am a fan of the other Los Angeles team, but I have to admit, I don't think I've seen a more tragic situation unfold over the past 5 years than the Kawhi Leonard, Paul George era Los Angeles Clippers. Because when you went into the 2019 offseason, you know, when the Los Angeles Clippers were coming off of a very impressive playoff run where they did lose in the first round to the Golden State Warriors, but those are some very competitive games with the Warriors. The Clippers were perceived as one of those young and exciting teams with a tremendous amount of capital, really good role players, and a promising young star in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The 2019 offseason featured one of the most exciting free agency classes to date. So who would the Clippers get? Would they get Kyrie Irving? Maybe they'd get Kevin Durant. But they set their sights on a player that was very hell-bent on going back to Los Angeles. You see, Kawhi Leonard from the very beginning, when he left the San Antonio Spurs, hinted that he wanted to go back to LA, whereas Paul George flirted with the Los Angeles Lakers right before he extended his contract with the OKC Thunder. Both of them are from the Los Angeles area. Many assumed either Paul George or Kawhi would end up a Los Angeles Laker, but what ended up happening during the 2019 offseason is one of the greatest power moves we've ever seen in NBA history. Kawhi Leonard told the Clippers that he was willing to leave the defending champion Toronto Raptors and sign with the Clippers if the Clippers traded for Paul George. And as a result, we got one of the craziest trades that we have ever seen in NBA history. An asset haul unlike anything that we've ever seen in NBA history. The Thunder essentially had the Clippers by the balls because they knew that if the Clippers didn't get Paul George, they weren't going to get Kawhi Leonard, and Steve Ballmer wouldn't have a competitive team in the Western Conference. And thus, the Clippers gave the Thunder an offer that they couldn't refuse. An offer that literally sent them into a rebuild, trading Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, Miami's 2021 unprotected first round pick, the Clippers 2022 unprotected first round pick, a 2023 pick swap, a 2024 unprotected first round pick, a 2025 Miami Heat first round pick, unprotected for 2026, a 2025 pick swap, and the Clippers 2026 unprotected first rounder. This trade immediately catapulted the Thunder from a playoff team in the West to a team that said, okay, bye-bye Paul George and Russell Westbrook. We're cool with rebuilding with all these assets now and developing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. For the Clippers, they became one of the best teams in the Western Conference. I mean, in the 2019 to 2020 season, it was the Clippers that were the favorite to come out of the West. It wasn't the Lakers. It was certainly not the Warriors. Denver Nuggets weren't the superpower that they are now. There was no team that was close to the level of talent of the Los Angeles Clippers, boasting two of the best two-way wings that could guard multiple positions in the NBA. So how did that go? Well, the 2019 to 2020 season, the Clippers and the Lakers would finish the season at number 1 and number 2 respectively. The Clippers would make a run to the second round of the playoffs, go up 3-1 against the Denver Nuggets. Laker fans were excited about the fact that we were finally going to see a Western Conference Finals between the Lakers and the Clippers. And what did the Clippers do? Well, they choked a 3-1 series lead versus the Denver Nuggets. But there was no question about it. If this Clippers team was fully healthy, they were going to return. But unfortunately, that image of Pandemic P was going to be the last last opportunity the Clippers got to see their team fully healthy in the playoffs. The next year, the Clippers would finish 4th in the West, and they would make it all the way to the Western Conference Finals, but Kawhi would get hurt, and the Clippers would lose 4-2 to the Suns. The very next year, Kawhi would get injured, and the Clippers would finish 8th in the West. But at least we would get this iconic meme of Patrick Beverley celebrating as the Minnesota Timberwolves defeated the Clippers in the play-in. During the 2022-23 season, both PG and Kawhi would suffer from injury, so the Clippers are screwed at this point. They have one more year of PG and Kawhi. They were able to get Kawhi Leonard to agree to a 3-year, $152 million contract extension, but they needed to go all in on this core, and they needed to make a deep run fast. So they decided to mortgage their future even more and make a trade that, without a doubt, is going to screw this team over for at least the next 6 years. See, in the beginning of last season, the Clippers decided to trade James Harden, PJ Tucker, and Philip Petrusev to the Clippers for Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, Nick Batum, KJ Martin, a 2028 unprotected first-round pick, 2 second-round picks, a 2029 pick swap, and they gave away an additional first-round pick from the Thunder. So the Clippers don't have a draft pick until the 2030 season. And this brings us to their situation with Paul George. Kawhi Leonard has already signed an extension, but believe it or not, that Kawhi Leonard extension may have been a mistake. I mean, he is the guy that is consistently getting injured in the playoffs year after year after year. When he's healthy, he's one of the best players in the NBA. The problem is he's not healthy when you need him to be. So Kawhi Leonard is the one that's struggling to stay healthy, but the Clippers are going to Paul George and asking him to take a pay cut, telling him that they're only willing to sign him to a 3-year deal. And as a result, well, Crispy Haynes mentions that it's not looking good for Paul George and the Los Angeles Clippers.
So as of right now, I mean, I believe the Clippers are huddling. They're waiting for their opportunity to when they're going to meet, and I believe that's going to be Lawrence Frank meeting with Paul George and his agent Aaron Mintz today. It sounds like it's going to take a Hail Mary. That's what it sounds like. It's going to take a Hail Mary for the Clippers to keep Paul George, but anything can change. Still got what, an hour and a half away from the official start of free agency. So I'll say that.
Now, a few days ago, Paul George had 3 options. The first one is obviously signing the Los Angeles Clippers lowball extension offer, which doesn't really make a lot of sense when you think that the Los Angeles Clippers are not only lowballing him, but he's also going to have to pay California state income tax, which is at 12.5% because he's going to be living in Los Angeles. So that's like a double whammy in regards to the amount of money Paul George could expect to lose, especially considering the fact that he is 34 years old, and this is going to be his last big payday, if we're being honest. His second option was to opt into his contract, which would pay him $48 million this year and get traded to the Golden State Warriors. And that trade was about to happen. You see, Paul George wanted to join the Warriors, but the Los Angeles Clippers were not interested in sending him there. Everything would have been perfect. The Warriors agreed to give him a max contract. They were going to move on from Klay Thompson for Paul George, which, no matter what you say, Paul George is certainly an upgrade over Klay Thompson. He shot better from 3 this past year and is still a remarkable defender. He can guard multiple positions, whereas Klay Thompson lost a step considering the fact that he tore his Achilles and his ACL. He hasn't been the same defender ever since, but he's still a really good 3-point shooter, just not worth max contract money. And check this out, the Warriors had agreed to give George a max 4-year extension upon arrival. They believed they had proposed several variations of a trade that the Clippers could and would accept. Steph Curry and Draymond Green were 100% on board. George gave strong indications he wanted to join the Warriors, but the Clippers never agreed to any version of a trade, and now Paul George is a free agent and essentially beyond the Warriors' reach. This gets even more depressing when you realize the level of pettiness that the Clippers went to, because the reported offer for Paul George is absolutely insane. The Warriors offered packages to the Clippers for Paul George that included variations of Jonathan Kuminga, Andrew Wiggins, Moses Moody, Chris Paul, and a first-round pick. And the Clippers said no because they just weren't interested in trading him to Golden State. I have a question. What year was this first round pick to be conveyed? If we're talking about a Golden State Warriors 2028 or 2029 first round pick that's unprotected, then I gotta admit, this is a new level of petty, because the Clippers preferred to make sure that the Golden State Warriors wouldn't get Paul George and they would be left with nothing with Paul George leaving them. So that being said, there weren't really that many more options for Paul George. Of course, we know Joel Embiid flirted with the idea of Paul George joining the roster when they were both doing coverage of the NBA Finals.
I can't stand them. I hate Boston. Great city, great fans. Obviously they got some great players, but he hurts me a lot. So hopefully, this offseason we find a way to get better and, add some pieces. Add some pieces.
And then Shams would come out and give us this huge smoke screen saying that the Philadelphia 76ers' interest in pursuing Paul George has significantly waned in recent days, and the franchise is expected to be aggressive elsewhere with its salary cap flexibility and draft capital leading into the NBA draft. The 76ers had a solid NBA draft. They drafted this guy.
One of the reasons why I kept painting my nails is I had a game after I painted my nails and I ended up playing really well. So I'm not crazy superstitious, but if I thought it looked nice, I thought it helped me play better, and so far it's worked.
So where are we currently on Paul George? Well, this is what Woj has to say.
Paul George has had a year to negotiate a deal with the Clippers, that he wants to take, and they've gone back and forth. Certainly in the last several months, Kawhi Leonard got his extension done, 3 years, less than the max during the season. Paul George wasn't ready to do that, and now we are into unrestricted free agency. He wants that 4th year on his contract. The Clippers have not offered it. And certainly, he's looking at that Clipper roster and asking himself too, are we a championship contender? All those factors. I think being in Southern California, being part of the Clippers as they go into the new Intuit Dome, I think those are things that are still very appealing to him. But Philadelphia out in the marketplace, Orlando to an extent out in the marketplace for him, can offer him that 4th year. And Philadelphia certainly is there a clear path in the Eastern Conference to try to win, although you still have to be able to go through Boston. Philly sees Paul George as a player that can help them get through the Celtics.
Mark Stein said that the Clippers were looking for a way to acquire both Paul George and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and ultimately we found out what would happen. So the very first move the Los Angeles Clippers made was signing James Harden to a 2-year, $70 million contract extension. And while at first glance you might think,
oh my God, this is amazing, Mike.
At least they were able to keep James Harden. The Clippers had all the leverage in this scenario. I mean, you needed to go into this offseason and figure out a way to keep James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George all together. And in order for that to happen, James Harden was going to need to take less money. Ultimately, they decided to lowball Paul George and have Paul George take a pay cut. So Kawhi Leonard gets paid the most money, then is Paul George, which would get paid somewhere in the 40s. Then it's James Harden that will get paid $35 million. In my opinion, at this stage of his career, James Harden is certainly not a max contract player, which is something that he was clamoring for last year. But at this stage of his career, he also doesn't deserve $35 million a year annually. Respectfully, he was a cheat code whenever he was in the prime of his career. He had some remarkable moments with the OKC Thunder and the Houston Rockets. He's currently 34 years old and doesn't deserve this type of money. Paying him $35 a year annually just goes to show the ineptitude in the front office for the Clippers. Look, I would say this is a good deal if you didn't need to keep Paul George as well. And it's not something that's gonna cripple the Clippers, but at this point, I really think Harden's team dangled the fact that the Clippers need to keep as many stars in Los Angeles as humanly possible because a brand new arena is opening soon. So you pretty much gave a player that averaged 16 points and 8 assists per game this past year, $35 million a year, which it's not going to cripple you in the future, but with all due respect, he should have been getting paid $20 million a year. This is an overpay that is going to ultimately cripple the Clippers, as you're going to see later on in this video, respectfully. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Russell Westbrook also agreed to opt into his $4 million contract, but the Clippers are also looking to trade him. The Denver Nuggets could be a likely place that Russell Westbrook goes to, but the most head-scratching move we found out so far is that the Clippers pretty much did the same thing as they did last year with Josh Primo. But a strange move that the Clippers have made was they decided to take another flyer on a talented player with a very questionable pass off of the court. And in this case, they agreed to a contract with Kevin Porter Jr., a 2-year deal including a player option. Kevin Porter Jr. apparently had multiple suitors and chose the Clippers. This man had an $80 million contract with the Rockets, but because of what went down with him and Kyer Gondrezick, where there was an alleged DV case, the Houston Rockets traded him to the OKC Thunder, and the OKC Thunder cut him. So now it seems like Kevin Porter Jr. is back in the NBA, and the craziest part about this is this happens in the same week where his ex-girlfriend, Kyer Gondrezick, got cut by the Chicago Sky. Very interesting decision by by the Los Angeles Clippers because they also took a flyer on Josh Primo last year, and he had his stuff with the San Antonio Spurs. We made videos on that in the past, but probably the most important piece of information we have is the fact that the Los Angeles Clippers announced that Paul George is leaving. And this has got to be embarrassing if you're the Clippers. I mean, you're out here not making good moves, being overly aggressive, you mortgaged your entire future, you had one job and one job only, and that's to keep Paul George. And well, they issued this statement. Paul has informed us that he is signing his next contract with another team. Paul is a tremendous talent and an elite two-way player. We feel fortunate for the 5 years we spent with him. Over that span, he went to 3 All-Star games, made the most three-pointers in franchise history, and helped lead the team to a place it had never been. Respectfully, that's cap. Do you guys remember in 2020 when Paul George said how much he loved the Los Angeles Clippers and what his goals were?
I owe him a trophy. That's what I owe this organization. This is a window that we're trying to capture. And my commitment and my job is to try to bring a title here.
His performances in games 5 and 6 against Utah in 2021 won't be forgotten by anyone associated with the Clippers. We traded a lot to pair Paul and Kawhi, and in exchange, we had 5 seasons of contention. Even though we fell short of our ultimate objective, we appreciate the chances we had with Paul. Heading into this offseason, our roster was constructed with 3 great players 33 and over, 2 of whom could become free agents. We wanted to retain them on contracts that would allow us, under the constraints of the new CBA, to continue building the team. We negotiated for months with Paul and his representative on a contract that would make sense for both sides, and we were left far apart. The gap was significant. We understand and respect Paul's decision to look elsewhere for his next contract. We explored an opt-in and trade scenario, but it would have left us in a similar position under the new CBA, with very little asset value to justify the restrictions. We will miss Paul. At the same time, we're excited by the new opportunities we've now been afforded, including greater flexibility under the new CBA. Kawhi is an all-NBA player, and we believe T. Lue is the best coach in the league. We will field a highly competitive team this season and moving forward, using our organizational advantages to bring top talent to Intuit Dome. Bro, you can't sell your fans on the fact that the Western Conference is getting stronger and you were able to retain the weaker player that wanted big money between Paul George and James Harden. You can't sit here and blame the new CBA for your decision making when you decided to sign the most injury prone player to the most money. I feel so bad for Clipper fans because there was a scenario where this could have worked out. There was a scenario where this could have been done properly, and it just wasn't executed properly. The Los Angeles Clippers were reckless and consistently chased the pot of gold over and over and over again. And the worst part of all is they could have gotten something in return for Paul George. But instead, out of pettiness, they decided to just let him walk away for free, which is probably the most mind-boggling part about all of this. Look, man, as a Laker fan, I've roasted my front office in the past. When we traded for Russell Westbrook, I obliterated our front office. This has nothing to do with my fandom. When there's an inept front office, you gotta call out an inept front office, and what the Los Angeles Clippers are doing is a brand new level of incompetent. And I just feel bad for Clipper fans, man. You guys really deserve better than this. But let's talk about the team that gets Paul George. According to Shams Charania, Paul George plans to sign a 4-year, $212 million max contract to join the Philadelphia 76ers. So it seems like Joel Embiid's flirting with Paul George ended up working out. This is a slam dunk for not only the Philadelphia 76ers, but also Paul George. Paul George gets to go to the Eastern Conference, which, by the way, is steadily getting stronger, obviously with the emergence of the Villanova Knicks. But if you take a look at what the Philadelphia 76ers have been missing, it's a two-way defensive player that could either guard Giannis Antetokounmpo or Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum whenever the Sixers make it to the playoffs. Paul George is going to slide right in next to Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid, and the Philadelphia 76ers recently signed Eric Gordon as well. Not only that, but Paul George gets paid way more money to go to a less competitive conference to play for a team that has a greater chance at making it to the NBA Finals than his former team. At the end of the day, Paul George is from Los Angeles. He wanted to stay in LA. It was because the Clippers did a horrible job managing the salary cap and the lowball offer that they gave him, and the fact that they wouldn't even go up to 4 years when they could realistically offer him 5 years? That resulted in Paul George leaving. Is this a lot of money to give a player of Paul George's caliber? Most definitely. But the Philadelphia 76ers could, because Tyrese Maxey peaked early, Joel Embiid's contract is relatively low compared to what the new salary cap is, and the situation is significantly better for Paul George. So I give the Philadelphia 76ers an A+ for this. Yeah, by the end of it, Paul George is going to be 38. Yeah, you're probably going to get some of his bad years, but this is clearly an upgrade over James Harden. This is an upgrade over whatever was left of Ben Simmons a couple years ago. This is probably the most competitive team that the Philadelphia 76ers had since the 2019 76ers that featured Jimmy Butler, JJ Redick, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid, and Ben Simmons. It wouldn't surprise me if this team is able to make a deeper run in the playoffs. I feel like Paul George would seamlessly fit into Nick Nurse's offense as well, and I think this is the best decision for himself and the 76ers. But in regards to the Los Angeles Clippers, man, I think this video is getting way too long. You guys already know how I feel about the Clippers decision making this offseason. I don't want to keep on beating a dead horse. If you're a Clipper fan, let me know in the comment section down below how you guys feel about it. Aside from that, I don't know if you guys heard, but Chris Paul made his decision. He is teaming up with Victor Wembanyama. We made a video about that a few hours ago. I'll make sure to catch you guys over there. And if you guys are watching this in the middle of the night, comment Midnight Mike in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.